Well, the art looks pretty, don't you think? The art town hall. It came out pretty nice.
We're on.
We're on. Welcome, everybody, to the December Town of Ocean Ridge meeting. Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Lucibella.
Present.
Commissioner Bonfiglio.
Here.
Commissioner Osgood.
Present.
Vice Mayor Allison.
Here.
Mayor Pugh.
Here. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
It is makes you laugh.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you see before you the agenda. Are there any modifications, deletions?
Mayor, I have an addition. I'd like to add an item to the agenda. It would be an action item, item 12A, you would call it, the addendum to employment agreement.
Say it again.
An addendum to my employment agreement. It runs until February 27th, and we've discussed my being here till March 7th, so we need to do it in writing.
So that'd be number 13?
12A, I think, would be more appropriate. 13 is a reading of an ordinance.
Oh, yeah, 12, okay.
Do I have, I guess I may ask Karen, if I have certain comments or things I want to bring up, is it under commissioner items?
Yeah.
Is that, okay, that's good.
So we'll put you under Commissioner?
If you would be.
Oh, right. All right, anything else? Is there a motion to approve the minutes and the consent agenda?
I move to.
Is it move? Is there-
Seconded.
Second.
Move in second? I know
I'll
we-
second.
Okay, it's moving second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, announcement and proclamations. The administrative offices will be closed on Friday, December 25th, and Friday, January 1st for the official holidays. Wow, that's quick. The workshop meeting to discuss possibly converting Old Ocean Boulevard to a one-way street is scheduled for Tuesday, January 26th, 2016, at 6 p.m. Now, we're going to have a, Jamie, we're going to have a, kind of like a, lack for a better term, an agenda of how we're going to run that, right, before that time?
The workshop?
The workshop, yeah.
Yes, we're going to have rules of engagement that we're going
That's-
to write for the public.
Okay,
Just courtesy rules, essentially, so we make sure everybody gets heard and the protocols that you want to implement as a commission are laid down so that there's some productivity to the meeting in a prescribed time period.
great. And we're going to have that by the meeting in January, right?
Yes, we'll have
Please.
that so you can approve that.
Thank you. All right, public comment. Yes, ma'am.
I just have two things. One, I want to address Mr. Lucibello. You mentioned that Adams
Name and
Road.
address for the record, Jerry.
Oh, Jerry Magruder, 9 Ridge Boulevard, Ocean Ridge Boulevard, Ocean Ridge, Florida. Mr. Lucibello, when we were talking about closing a mid-lane, if and when it ever does get closed, you mentioned that people on Adams Road said that they were getting tons of traffic. That is and I'm sorry, I don't know if any people from Ridge Boulevard are here, that is a shortcut for people to get into Adams Road. And if it ever gets closed, people on Adams Road will see that there is hardly any more traffic come their way. And the next thing is for the chief. I don't know who all lived here on the panel during 9/11, but 9/11, the monsters that drove the planes into 9/11 buildings, the 110 Towers, lived across the bridge from us, shopped in our Publix with us, and worked at the little postal service at Linton and Federal, in which I mailed packages every week to my mom in Pittsburgh. And they got to know me and asked about my mom. And my mom died during 9/11, and I couldn't get my mom to her, what do you call that? She wasn't buried in the ground. She was put in a
The mausoleum?
mausoleum. Thank you, because the what do you call this? The Air Force was trying to get out of Pittsburgh Airport area because the plane went down, and it just shocked me to see the pictures of the men on TV that went into 9/11, because I talked to them every day, and then when they saw me in the Publix, they would say, "How's your mom?" So I would like to know what we're going to do here in our town to help us as things go on further with terrorism, and that they say is spreading throughout our areas in the United States, to warn us maybe not to go places when they know something is happening in town or in our local vicinity, out in the quadrant, 25-mile, 50-mile area. I think that the police forces are now even more saturated in what is happening, I would hope. And I think we need to be properly warned, like, don't go somewhere, or kind of stay close to your home on these given days. And I know I don't go to malls very much anymore. When I do, I go do my business, I come out and I leave. I don't linger. I think a lot of people are doing that. They're not lingering in crowded areas.
If it's appropriate, I'll respond.
Sure, go ahead.
Since 9/11, a lot of things have changed in the world, and in policing, and in intelligence gathering, and how we get information and give information. And there's a lot more information sharing that goes on between federal, state, and local agencies. The town of Ocean Ridge is an active participant with the FBI, Joint Terrorism Task Force, in monitoring the situations around the world, starting with Paris until this morning. I've continued to been provided daily, if not twice or three times daily, briefings on the developments that are going on. Currently, there is nothing to indicate that there is a threat to our local area. If there were, we will inform you.
How will we be informed? By the internet, by telephone?
It depends upon the information that's received. It may be through our newsletter. If it's something that is serious and imminent, it will be in person, probably, by officers knocking on your door. That's the whole gamut of everything.
Okay.
The world is a changing place. Myself and several officers within the police department have entered into agreements with the federal government to allow us to obtain as much classified information as we possibly can to benefit the town of Ocean Ridge, should we have the need to do it. And we continue to monitor it daily, like I say, with Paris and with San Bernardino. Within 4 hours of those incidents happening, there were conference calls, intelligence briefings, information provided to us that we were able to look at our local files and see if there was any connection here, to try and maintain our sanctity and to ensure your safety.
Okay.
All I can do is assure you that that is tops on my priority, just like the daily safety of every resident here.
Because I'll say that,
Be aware of your surroundings. That's the best thing you can do. If it doesn't feel right, don't go there. You'll see in the monthly news that come up, there is a protocol in place nationally. It's recognized. It's called Run, Hide, Fight, and
Yeah.
it gives you the steps, and it's just to give you an idea of how to prepare yourself in case you find yourself in a bad area. And it could be for anything.
because I'll admit, the anthrax scare that we had on Ridge Boulevard, it was done extremely well. Even though it took 12 hours, it was done extremely well. And that
I hope that gives you some peace of mind to know that though it took 12 hours, it was handled correctly and professionally.
Yes,
And
it
that's-
was.
And that's what you should expect should anything happen in Ocean Ridge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Yes, sir. That would be you, Justice. Haven't seen you in a while.
I had a bolt broke off my foot. I had to put a new pin. Hi, my name is Justice Brown. And I live at 39 Coconut Lane. I appreciate you guys having a nice layout dinner for us for Christmas. And I want to say something about Mid Road, something like that?
Mid-Lane?
Mid-Lane, yeah. Well, does the people know when they close that lane, it's going to be a one-way in and one-way out? Plus, their taxes are going to go up because it's a dead-end street now. It won't be not a dead-end street like it is now. And they will raise their taxes and it'll go up. I would like to see it not put in place because we don't have many one-way, streets now. Everybody else will be wanting to close their streets up after this happens, And really, I don't like to see that. Now, if the people in that neighborhood wants to close it off their own and pay for it, I'll be fine with that. Appreciate it, But I tell you, I don't want to pay for somebody else's luxury, But my name is Justice, and that's my name.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Evening, Commission. Christina Hassett, 29 Sable Island. I am here representing the Garden Club, though, tonight, not me as an individual citizen. We would just like to present as the Garden Club a small token of our appreciation to Karen as she leaves. She has been a loyal supporter of the Garden Club. She's helped us through scheduling and picking up things that were left over from rummage sales and helping us pick out trees when we decorated it, and helped us schedule stuff for Light the Lights and move things around so maintenance people could help us with the dune, and we just want to say thank you and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Terry Brown. I live on Harbor Drive South, and I'm not related to Justice Brown except by Homo sapiens being related to each other. But
glad you cleared that up.
what I thought that it's a serious comments regarding terrorism, but I think that the chief has got everything that he can do under control. But I'd like to bring up a subject that's going to be not immediate, but it's going to affect everybody in this town, particularly in certain areas. And this has to do with sea level rise. I know that this is a subject that it's like death and taxes no one wants to talk about, but it's going to come. Miami is drowning. The Key West measuring system in the last 100 years has measured a 9-inch rise in sea level. We have seen that since we lived here. I know you have too. The water percolates up through the street. It doesn't drain down anymore because the groundwater can't go anywhere. What I'm suggesting is that since we're going to have a new regime, not here, of course, but the new clerk and the new manager, that somehow in the future you schedule a vision. We had these meetings before to talk about the impact it will have on infrastructure. And that means more than just slapping down a coat of asphalt on the top of the streets. That ain't going to work anymore. You're going to have to rebuild some of these streets. Now, I'm talking about Harbor Drive South. It doesn't affect me, but it affects the further down at the end of the bathtub and where you are too. Yeah. And there's other streets over where Gail lives. All those streets, the water's coming up and staying underneath the shell rock and asphalt. The roads are going to have to be elevated. This is going to be expensive. The city of Miami Beach has huge pumps installed to try to get rid of the water that stays around. We went down to Key Biscayne to a very fancy apartment in the site where the Ritz-Carlton is, and they had artwork, and this place was worth millions, and the whole place was flooded. You couldn't get in there off of Key Biscayne, off the bridge. I mean, you've got to think of these things in the future. And there's lots of roads that you can pick up besides just where we live.
Right. Thank you, Terry. Just so your own knowledge, though, believe it or not, we were just talking about this Wednesday, the town manager.
Yeah.
The town manager had isn't it the federal government? They're doing some grants.
The legislative conference I just came back from, one of the presentations there was the Southeast Regional Climate Compact, which deals with sea level rise, which is a consortium between Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, and Monroe counties. And they've taken a collaborative approach in order to focus, target funding, grant funding, and mitigation strategies, and Miami-Dade was actually the first recipient. So some of those pumps and walls you're mentioning were beneficiaries of that collaboration.
Yeah, I was aware of that. I'm glad that you are paying attention to that. It also is going to affect the dune if Sandy was 100 yards closer to us, that road, Old Ocean, the water would have gone up and stayed and washed away a lot of it. So I urge you to encourage the property owners to keep the sea grapes and the sea oats at the proper height and the proper density. And that's going to be real important, because if you've been reading the paper, Jupiter, the town of Palm Beach, they're all having to cough up their own money to pay for some of this dune restoration and beach restoration. The federal and state people, those funds have dried out. So it's really, really, I think, important. And catch basins are no longer going to solve the problem. That was the solution that the previous manager came up with, and it worked for a little while. But those catch basins where we are fill right up and don't go anywhere.
Thank you, Terry. Any other public comment?
Nancy Hogan, 37 Hibiscus Way. I had two items, if I can do both. And, you know, I'm not one, anyone who knows me politically knows I don't quote the president, but I want to talk to you about, it must be silly season. Could somebody tell me why in my neighborhood, to get over to A1A, I've got to look at a speed sign, neon sign that's going flashing at me? I mean, you know what it said tonight? I was doing 11 miles per hour. 11 miles per hour. How much of my taxpayers' dollars did you spend to put up this sign? And what is the necessity for that sign to be there? And secondly, are those two, where it's broken into the roadway, are they even come to state regs? Are they official roads? You know what I mean? Okay, you're not responding. Okay.
No, yeah, it's your comments, so I'm just waiting you to get through your comments.
Well, that's on that subject. The other one, and thank you, Terry, because we really got a real good visual around town this week because of the rains. And I'll have to tell you, I'm having a real problem. I've been up here for minimum 5 years, pushing towards 10 on Gary's house and on the left side of me. And they're building, finally got that done, and they're building another one. I went up here, I went to so many hearings, it's all on public record of the way that it was not, the drainage was not done correctly. And it still isn't. And Lisa did not respond to the whole, I don't know if she doesn't come to the hearings, but I don't know if she reads the notes or whatever. Now I've got on the other side, and my God, the rain came down and it just poured like a huge shower, bounces off their pool equipment that they put a whole new patio on, right onto my lawn. Didn't even touch their property. Forget any good drainage or anyone looking over what's happening on the property. And again, I complained, and Lisa looked at it and came up with virtually nothing. Now I came back a second time with pictures. We're going to see tomorrow. But I need help here. I really need help. I need somebody to walk the property with me. Ken used to at times. Didn't always help me, but he was available. I'm very concerned about the oversight follow-on. You can't just have a professional engineer who's, and I don't mean Lisa in this case, who gives you plans and he brings them in because he's certified by the state, and then it's not followed up to look at. Because I got the same thing on both sides now. It wasn't done. It goes right to the property lines as they come down, right to the seawall, and that's where mine blew out. It's going to happen again. And it's simple. And I got the smallest one, and you know, you don't have sewers, so you're talking about a very small septic field that I have. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa is set to look at that property tomorrow, and she's been emailed photos of the property.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, let's move on to our public hearings. Applications submitted, Ken?
Yeah, this, this is being asked to be continued again. I think since we're continuing it, it'd probably be best to read the description of it, so if there's anybody here who might be looking to talk about it, they'll know what we're doing.
This is an application submitted by Everlast Realty LLC, a Massachusetts limited liability company, and John Loring, Mark Loring, James Loring, and Mayanne Seabold as successors co-trustees of the Sunshine Estate Trust, 23 Brigham Road, Worcester, Massachusetts, and 94 Island Drive South, Ocean Ridge, Florida, 33435, requesting a public hearing regarding the provisions of the Land Development Code at Chapter 64 zoning, Article 5 subdivision, Section 64 through 64-100 through 64-105 pertaining to replatting requirements. The applicants are requesting to replat 3 single-family lots into 3 new reconfigured single-family lots. All 3 lots will meet the zoning requirements for the RSF, Residential Single Family District. The 3 properties are comprised of A, Lot 92 and a portion of Lot 93, and B, the remaining portion of Lot 93 and Lot 94 in the McCormick Mile Addition Number 1 subdivision, or 92 and 94 Island Drive South. The exact legal description is located within the file. The request will also require a release of unity of title and a release of recorded easements. This was continued from October to November, and now they're requesting a continuance now for the December meeting until January.
The location of these properties create some challenges in terms of sufficient room for easements and that type of thing. They've been working with our engineer, with us letting them know what more needs to be done. So they need a little more time. They'd like to continue it until the January 4th meeting at 6 p.m.
Need a vote?
I have a question first. Is there a limit on the number of times we can continue this item? I mean, this is three times it's been continued.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of limit?
No, not as long as, we read the title each month and people who might be here to talk about it are made aware that it's being continued.
All right. And if a commissioner moves to continue it, regardless of who he is that some sort of a waiver of any objections, or?
No.
No, okay, because we've had it 3 times now, and.
No, there's nothing on the merits here, just
All
a
right.
request to continue it till next month.
In light of that, I will move to continue item number 4. I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Item number 4 from this month's December meeting to the January 2016 meeting.
Yeah, and be specific, January 4th at 6 p.m.
January 4th, 2016 at 6 p.m. meeting.
Correct.
I second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ken. All right, moving on to our reports. Jamie.
Thank you, Mayor. First item on my report is the Mid-Lane Road closure that has come up. As you're all aware, last month we agreed to do a trial pilot project closing down Mid-Lane Road for a period of about 6 months. Immediately following that meeting, we did a couple of steps to move in that direction. We purchased and installed signage in the neighborhood. We purchased the hardware and equipment necessary to put up traffic diverting pylons along Mid-Lane Road and got all the necessary parts and pieces. We mounted the signs in the neighborhood and sent written letters and other means of correspondence to all the residents there. Last Thursday was the day we had projected to actually put the pylons in to close it off after the residents had sufficient notice. And it was brought to our attention that we needed to increase some of the hardware, some of the striping, and some of the pylons, et cetera, in order to be essentially DOT compliant with the installation of our temporary closure. Having that information brought to my attention, it would be prudent for the town to heed that, so that if there is a problem or an accident or some sort of unintended consequence there, we've at least installed to DOT standards in the right-of-way, which happens to be Palm Beach County right-of-way versus us. You all approved a expenditure amount, which was, I believe, $750, and between buying the pylons and the signage, we have about expended that amount of money for those supplies. And in order to be compliant and make this work from a traffic standard, I am going to probably have to increase the number of pylons by half again for the span it has to cover. So I need to spend a little more money to bring this in for fruition and be compliant with all those interested agencies. So I am looking for your either consensus or an action to move forward on it on that basis.
All right, 2 questions then. How much and when?
We bought 10 pylons based on a 30-foot span. No, well, it's more than 30 feet, but for 10 at 3-foot coverage. We have to come out to the white line, so I'm estimating we would need another 4 to 5 pylons. They run around $60 a piece, plus mounting hardware. So another $250 to $350, I think, will bring in the hardware piece of that.
What about the line?
The line, we would have to get painted.
And how much would that be?
I don't have a price on that, I'll get it. I don't know if we can do it ourselves, kind of paint the white line versus putting down, the DOT puts down the hot melt reflective tape. You have to confirm that.
Being it's
whether we
temporary,
get
can we
away.
just get out some white paint, paint the darn thing, and put some something
Well,
on there? I mean,
that's
come
sort
on.
of our plan.
I mean, it's like typical government things. I mean, it's like you just try to do something small and ends up to be this huge monster. Look,
You need a
just,
motion on this?
Yeah, let's
My
just do it, yeah.
frustration
I'll give
is
you a motion.
shared.
I'll give you a motion.
Yes, sir.
I don't think this should come back to the commission. I'll give you a motion that we approve the expenditure of up to $1,000 to get this done. If you can get it done with DOT hot melt quickly, get it done. But the issue is get it done quickly, more importantly than having all the bells and whistles. That's my motion, $1,000. And your
Additional from what
discretion
you
to get it
spent.
done. Pardon?
From what you already spent, an additional
An
$1,000.
additional up to $1,000, and I don't think it's gonna take that
Up
much.
to.
It should not.
It's not gonna need that much, but that's okay.
Of course, but
That's
why
fine.
But
bring
you
it
don't
back
want it to
here?
That's
come
fine,
back.
I
Why bring it
second
back?
it, Let's
okay,
get
it's
it done.
motion second. Any other discussion about it?
Get it done.
I just, if we can like put the things up and just get them up, and then we can come back and put the line in, at least get them up. I mean,
Ask for forgiveness, not permission?
yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, it is our town.
I just don't want to expose the town, and
Right.
these
Oh, I
issues
understand
came
that.
up about traffic standards.
But, if you ask the question, then if the more you ask the question, the more likelihood someone's gonna say no.
Well, and the traffic standards have to do with the pylons. We've approved that.
Right.
I don't think the traffic standards require that DOT come out and put a hot melt down, though you can ask for it after the fact. I think you probably will find that all you need is bright white lines, right?
I'm going with that theory, yes.
There may be some
for right
reflective
now.
things you tonight. Anyway, so we have a motion and a second.
Let's move.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Just, if we can go there tomorrow and put 'em in.
Expedite.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We said we were gonna do it, let's do it.
All right, what else you got?
Barrier Island Fire District, actually, you have an action item on this later in your agenda, but I just wanted to report to you that tomorrow and Wednesday, each of the participating municipalities are meeting with the awarded consultants for the study to look at fire rescue services on the Barrier Islands. Fortunately, the bid for the entire project came in much less than originally projected. I believe this town had projected up to $15,000 as their share for that study. It appears our study will be about our share of it will be approximately $9,600, and there's an item later on the agenda for you to approve that amount out of contingency, but it's about 2/3 of what you originally projected to get this done. Tomorrow and Wednesday, they're interviewing all of us individually in the towns to get the metrics and start the heavy lifting of the study.
Great.
Good.
My next item on here is just about town landscaping and special projects. I think I've spoken to many of you, and I've been meeting with the vendors of the town and talking to Public Works and talking to Chris Wayne Associates and talking to Able Tree and trying to confirm the landscape out there, if you will, no pun intended, or maybe, that we have a lot of work that is somewhat behind in terms of trimming and upgrading of landscaping, and I even think I've mentioned here that you want to look at beautification, design and appropriations in the next budget cycle. So I'm looking at all these issues and trying to put this matrix together. I just wanted to put it on your radar screen tonight because I'm trying to figure out who's on first when it comes to who's going to take care of things. For example, the coconut palms on Coconut, the hardwoods down Ocean, the various landscaping islands at some of the residential communities that are on public right-of-way. And it's not so simple. In fact, I've got a quote pending on Inlet K Bridge for replacement of plants that are not doing well there. And before we move forward on these things, I want to make sure we're picking the right materials, we're maintaining them properly, and we're getting some longevity out of these big dollars that the town is spending on all these items. So it's just to get it on your radar screen for now. No action requested at this time.
Okay. Are they doing, like, real quick question?
Yes.
I noticed that all the colorful stuff in front of our signs is gone. Is there any plan to put it back in?
There is a replacement program for those.
Okay.
Many of those colorful plants that are selected and placed are seasonal or perennial, and they need to be replaced on a regular basis. That's part of the matrix. I'm trying to figure out who does it when and how much we're paying for that, so we can maximize those efficiencies. But yes, they will get replaced in their due cycle.
Good deal. Well, due cycle as in soon?
I hear soon. Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah,
I'm still trying to.
it's the interest of the town. I mean, come on, that's the whole point. Okay. Thank you. Is that it? Jamie?
Yes, that's all. The other is just I'm meeting with everybody, and I encourage, the main thing is I'm meeting regularly with vendors of the town and contractors and residents as they come in and everybody, and I'm trying to connect the dots very quickly. One quick side note, because it came up in several of the the public comments, and that is on the sea level rise stuff. In spite of the millions and millions of dollars you spent on mitigation for drainage and flooding issues, we are going to continue to see these kinds of issues because of that phenomenon. And the town will have to make decisions in the future about how much they want to spend, how much they want to spend in localized areas, how much is on the property owner. The fact remains many of our properties in town are on sinking islands, and we've all seen firsthand the equinox tides in the last 2 months and how they have affected our best guess engineered drain systems to almost ineffectiveness during those periods of time. I was in touch with our line tech people, our various vendors for that today and this past week, and we're looking at some inspections and some prescriptions for how we might fix some of those failing systems.
Thanks, that reminds me, is that on your radar, the line tech, we talking about the backflow problem in Ocean?
Yeah, we have pipe inspections, we have camera work that needs to be done, we have valve work that needs to be done. Most of it's been put off because of the seasonal conditions of the tides and water table, et cetera. But systematically, we have to work from one end to the other and come up with some solutions. Because I hear from the residents every day of those particularly acute problem areas. And hopefully we'll find a prescription for you to weigh in on when, because these are not cheap solutions, obviously. Some of them are quick fixes, but categorically, the drain systems and the sea level rise that was mentioned all have to be addressed comprehensively over time. So you've done amazing things in the town, but there's more to do.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Jamie? Thank you, Jamie. Okay. Ken?
Thank you, Mayor. Just give you notice of a couple of items. One, in a federal lawsuit called Palm Beach Golf Center, Boca, as representative of a class versus John G. Saris, DDS, we've received a notice of a pending class action. This has to do with allegations that Dr. Saris violated the Telephone Consumer Protection Act by sending unsolicited fax advertisements. So it's a class action. Anybody who received any of these solicitations have been named as a member of the class, and there's reason to believe that the town of Ocean Ridge had. At this point, the only decision to be made is whether or not to stay in the class. Obviously, this is one of those matters that you would not sue individually for the violations, particularly since you didn't even know about them till just this minute. But by staying in the class counsel will proceed with it. There's a possibility of getting up to $500 for each fax sent. At this point, there's nothing to do except to make the decision, and by doing nothing, we make the decision to stay in the class and see what happens.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we do nothing.
I didn't put on the agenda for action, so. The second item is just an update on the appeal in the IG litigation. The county asked for an extension of time to file its answer brief until December 9th, which is Wednesday. So we would anticipate their brief would be here in the next 2 days unless they ask for another extension of time. Once it comes in, then the municipalities have the opportunity to do a reply brief and also respond to the issues they've raised on appeal. And so I'll give you another report on that next month. And that's all I have.
That's it? Mm-hmm. Any questions for Ken? Thank you, Ken. Chief?
Good evening. Attached, you will find the October monthly report. Along with that, I included a commendation that I issued to Investigator Jones for some very exemplary, proactive work in removing a criminal from town that was having a negative effect on our ability to leave things in our cars. We continue to have some crimes of that nature at this time of year, but at least we have one person we know is not going to be doing that. Unless you have any questions, I have nothing further.
Any questions for Hal?
Nope.
Give our best to Investigator Jones. Thank him for us. All right, moving on. We'll move on to the action items. Discuss a short list and interview process for the legal representation. Jamie?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn this over to the attorney in a moment. I just want to point out, just so you have a worksheet, I passed out a form that has the listing of all 7 firms that responded to our inquiry for possible representation in legal services. All of you as commission members received a relatively thick package of all the copies of the submitted introductory packages or letters from interested legal firms. There's a gambit, a range of legal firms that goes from, one-man or two-man shops, sole practitioners, up to what I'd call big box legal firms, that have tens or 20s, if not hundreds of lawyers in all the disciplines. There are 7 in. Some you're familiar with, some you may not be. What I thought we would do this evening is talk about the firms you are interested in hearing from. It's not intended to make a decision this evening in terms of picking a legal firm, but identifying the ones that you're actually interested in having presentations from. And as I said, they run from small to large and in all different configurations. With that, I would turn it over to Ken Spilius to maybe just identify, if you'd like, who the firms are, and then we could go about seeing what your preference is as a commission of who you'd like to hear from. And then we would probably recommend that you set up a special meeting for that purpose once you've identified any or all of the firms you want to hear from. And then we do a daytime special meeting where those firms would come and interview or meet with you one-on-one and present the credentials of their firm. Okay, Ken?
Commissioners, at the last meeting, you expressed a preference for a law firm rather than a single sole practitioner. What we did is we took identified law firms who are either based in Palm Beach County or do local government work in Palm Beach County, and sent letters of interest out to them. This is not a formal RFP process. You kind of left it up to us to identify firms. We did do that, and as these things happen, word got out on the street that the town was going to be looking for legal counsel, and we received some unsolicited phone calls and requests to submit. That's why you'll find a couple of small firms, sole practitioners, even though your initial information to us was that you wanted a firm that had some backup. The 7 who have responded, and there are, we were contacted, I was contacted by more than these 7. There were a couple of firms that we sent letters to, including my previous firm, Lewis Longman, that for one reason or another, either through conflict or based on the economics of it, indicated that they would not be in a position to be submitting. But these are the 7, and what I can do is kind of give you, to the extent that you may not have had an opportunity to read through the entire packet that you got, some information about all the firms. You know, I've had, in one way or another, I've had dealings with either professionally or in opposition in litigation with every one of these firms. So, I mean, I can tell you up front that everybody on this list is a capable person or firm. They all do and know local government, many aspects of local government, and so there's no one on here that I would feel that if you went in that direction that you would not get good service. There are 3 firms that we did not specifically solicit that did ask to have the privilege of submitting their information. Of course, we said yes. One is Brandenburg and Associates. Gary Brandenburg is the city attorney of Pahokee. He's a former county attorney. He was selected as county attorney in my last few months when I was on the county commission. He has also worked in a large firm, Carlton Fields, and has had his own practice now for a while. To the best of my knowledge, and based on my review of his submission, Gary is a sole practitioner. Bradley Biggs. Brad is a former lawyer with the Corbett White firm. Brad also, to the best of my knowledge, is a sole practitioner. Right now, he represents about three or four. He represents South Palm Beach, and I can't remember the other 2. There are at least 2 or 3 municipalities in Palm Beach County that Palm Beach Shores and Palm Beach Shores. Brad was with Corbett and White for quite some time. This is his area of law. This is all he does. Actually, before he became a lawyer, Brad was an intern in my law firm, and so in a sense, he did some work for me at that time as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. When we say they're a sole practitioner, which means they've broken off from one of these larger firms,
Right.
they would have other lawyers probably working with them, right?
If
I'm asking, I don't
if
know.
you have an issue that the attorney either does not have the capacity from the standpoint of time
Right.
to handle, or the expertise, then they would be coming to you and asking you to hire outside counsel to assist them in those kinds of circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Another one we did not send a letter to is the Lohman Law Group. Max Lohman was also with Corbett and White, and Max broke off, I'm not sure, it was a year or 2 ago. He is a 2-person law firm. He is an associate, Abigail Jornby, who was an associate at Corbett and White when they broke off to form their own firm. Max represents, again, I'm not sure.
Palm Beach Gardens.
Palm Beach
Lantana.
Gardens, Lantana, which are clients that he had when he was at Corbett and White, and they chose to go with him when he set up his own shop. Max was, as a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, was in the service, has done a lot of local government work, as his resume shows. Abigail Jornby, for those of you who've been around long enough, is the daughter of former public defender Dick Jornby. She was in the state attorney's office. She's a litigator, and then joined Corbett and White, and has gotten much more involved in local government. So there would be two folks there. Let me go to the other extreme. The two large, relatively large firms that applied, neither one of which is indigenous to Palm Beach County, but both of which have represented municipalities, special districts, counties in Palm Beach County, if not as general counsel, as special counsel. One is Gray Robinson. Gray Robinson is a statewide law firm. I'm not sure where they're originally based, whether it was Tallahassee or Orlando, but they have offices around the state. They do have a Boca Raton office at this time. They do special work for cities, but they also represent a number, with one or another of their lawyers, represent a number of towns as general counsel. Gray Robinson is a full-service law firm. They do not do just local government. They do a broad range of work, a lot of governmental work, land use, employment law, pretty much the full range of services. Similarly, Weiss Serota is...
Let me interrupt for a second now.
Yes.
These are the ones that you reached out to? Robinson, is that correct? And the next two?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Weiss Serota is a Broward law firm that does a lot of local government work. We have Ocean Ridge has had representation of a sort from Weiss Serota. Jamie Cole is a litigator for their firm who handled a lawsuit several years ago that was led by Boca Raton and Delray Beach that we joined in, and I'm trying to remember, it had to do with fire districts. So I had interaction personally with Jamie and Susan Trevarthen of their firm, who I believe is the person listed who would be the, Susan, were you the person listed who would be the point person? We're not going to get into a conversation. No, just answer yes or no to that. No, okay. Susan Trevarthen is a member of the firm who I've dealt with in the past, and it is a firm that has significant knowledge, expertise, and experience in this area.
Broward based?
They're Broward based. The main, that's their home base, yes.
And they have offices in Dade as well.
Yeah, they have offices.
Yes,
in
they have
Dayton.
offices elsewhere. Then the other two law firms are the mid-sized firms that are based strictly in Palm Beach County and represent, each of them represents a number of municipalities in the county. The one is Corbett, White, Davis, and Ashton. Corbett, White, Trela White has for probably the last 20-odd years served as general counsel for the League of Cities. And Jamie, of course, worked very closely with her. Her husband, John Corbett, is a land use attorney who, for the most part, represented private interests in rezonings, comprehensive plan matters, and all that. They are both of counsel to the firm now. They've sort of stepped back and turned over the reins to Keith Davis and Jennifer Ashton, both of whom represent cities throughout. I think they represent about 7 or 8 municipalities in the county. Manalapan, they did represent Lantana, but not anymore. But it's about cities from larger, significantly larger than us, to about the same size. They, Jennifer Ashton has been very involved in the IG litigation. She, in addition to doing just municipal law, also does litigation. And, you know, they, for quite some time now, have been known as one of the top municipal law firms, clearly in the county, and I think, pretty well known throughout the state as well, through Triola's work with the League of Cities. And the other firm is Torsivia, Donlin, Godot, and Ansay. Quite a mouthful. Again, in the interest of full disclosure, Glenn Torsivia, in a sense, worked for me when he was an assistant county attorney and I was county commissioner. Then for 6.5 years, he was my landlord when we shared office space when I was a sole practitioner. So well aware of Glenn and his law firm. Laura Donlin is a labor employment specialist. Karen would remember, not really any reason for you all to remember, but Laura was our special magistrate for a couple of years in our code enforcement, a task that Glenn has taken over since she kind of shifted into full-time labor work. And again, this is a law firm that represents, I'd say, 7 or 8 cities, special districts. They've represented Children's Services Councils, the Healthcare District, and have done municipal, or what's the one I'm looking for? Utilities work. They do the gamut, as does Trela and White. Trela, Corbett and White. They do the gamut of local government work in the community as well. So that's kind of, I see as you got sort of 3 tiers of the sole practitioner / small firm, the major multi-purpose firms, and the kind of the mid-range local government firms who are indigenous to the county. I'll be glad to answer any of the questions you have.
No, you want to, when do you feel you can, because commissioners turn this short list in so we can get this on the next meeting and get it over with?
Yeah, our suggestion,
Extend your contract?
yeah, I
That's
suggest,
later on, with the March.
But I mean, that's March, so we're in December,
Right.
January and February.
That's right.
yeah.
My suggestion would be, since we had criteria from before, let's go with the criteria and focus on the firms that we solicited. I mean, nothing against the solo practitioners, but that wasn't one of the criteria. So I think we can cut the list down to that.
Right.
I like it that one of the firms sent somebody here
So do I.
to the meeting. What firm were you with, ma'am? Okay.
I will tell you that Glenn Torsivia called me and asked me if he should come tonight, and I suggested that he not.
Okay.
Bad advice.
Bad
That we weren't going to be making any decisions.
So, I'm prepared to whittle this down to 3 or 4 at this
Yeah,
point.
I've filled it already, because I just want to say that we did decide that we weren't doing sole practitioners. And also, I do have somewhat of a leaning towards the firms that are based in Palm Beach County, because I think that they're dealing with the cities like Lake Worth, like Manalapan. So that's 2 of them right there. And
I mean, if you're willing, what we were going to suggest was that you have a special meeting where the firms that you select come and make their pitch to you. If what I'm hearing is the consensus of the commission in terms of the size of the firms, it would take about 2 hours to have all 4 of the other firms come in and each give about a half-hour pitch. And if you don't want to try to whittle it down further than that.
This is moving a little bit quick for my limited capacity. Did each of these firms give us hourlies? Because I only saw it in one of the packets. I mean, do we know what they're all charging?
They were asked, and all of the packets should have some information
Okay,
about.
there was just
about
so
it.
much of it. that-
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I will tell you that I'm sure, given what I saw in terms of what their proposals were, that they all checked our budget.
Okay, and that's fine. You give a outstanding thumbnail of each, and I would agree that, with all respect to the firm that is here, you kind of get an extra point for me if you're Palm Beach based and you're doing a lot of Palm Beach work. But I'm also struck by And I agree that the solo firms probably wouldn't make it, but I was kind of struck by Loman Corbett, what you said, your sentiments around Loman Corbett. They're doing Lantana. they're
Loman
doing-
Law Group.
Yes,
Loman Law
yeah, Loman Law Group. I had put Corbett for Loman, I'm sorry. I'm talking Loman Law Group. They came out of Corbett, I got that. They're doing Palm Beach Gardens, they're doing Lantana. It's a two-person firm, and so I think that it provides a pretty good juxtaposition to some of the larger firms. If you're going to do some interviews, that is the one smaller or mid-sized firm that I see that we may want to talk to.
Yeah, I like them also. The other thing is, and that's really the four firms that are based in Palm Beach, with the Palm Beach. But aside from you and Commissioner Bonfiglio, most of us don't have expertise in the legal field. And so I can hardly imagine, except for personality, what we'd have to hear from four different law firms, because really, these documents tell you where they're working, what they're charging, and I don't understand what we would get really out of these interviews. I'm happy to do it if the commission feels they want to do it. But I think basically, if we're looking for a certain, firm, and they've worked with you, and Jim, you've also provided some background on some of them.
What I would look for
Would you
in
want-
a face-to-face would
Yeah.
be coverage
Right.
of, if whoever's assigned to handle us is not available, who would cover for that person and their expertise, and dollars. I mean, that's really the two issues that
And
you
if
need to
that's
really
not in here, I mean,
Yeah.
But we don't know who they plan to have based on.
In some
on the
cases you
package.
do, they've said, and in some you don't.
but would we who aren't in the legal field know if they give a name, what difference that would make? I mean, we can only depend upon you and upon Jim too.
No, I think I can safely say that whoever would be doing work for the town from any of these firms would do good work. I mean, there's nobody here that even in private, I would tell you, I might tell you whether I like them or not, but I wouldn't tell you that they couldn't do the work. And the reason we're bringing it to you, because ultimately this is a commission choice.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of the kinds of questions you would ask, I mean, I think, Commissioner Bonfiglio pointed out some of the things that you might want to know. Who would be covering for you? You've had in the last few years some major projects, from stormwater drainage to rewriting the code. My firm was able to handle 95% of that, Lewis Longman, because we did cover the gamut, and we had people who were very good in those areas.
And you brought in the different people with expertise.
Right. That might be the type of question that you may want to be asking, given the kinds of projects that you may have coming up, like the fire district thing and stuff like that, as to the.
Continued PBA.
Well,
We have
have
you've
the
got
labor-
labor negotiations,
Right.
things like
Labor
that.
issues.
Look, we've got an obligation, I think, to the budget and to the residents to take the time
Yeah, that's
to,
fine. I
to,
just don't know
to
what I'd ask.
meet these various firms, whichever subset we select, and spend a little bit of time. I mean, you do get a sense of whether or not the specific attorney is technically focused, relationship focused, what type of an interaction you're going to have
Right.
up here. And I think we owe it to the budget and to the town to do that.
And I would,
Trying to do it, right, 3 months.
and I would suggest, I think the personality issue, the fit issue and all that, I'm not sure how much you really will get out of an interview. Sometimes you can at least glean whether you think someone's a good fit. I mean, Ocean Ridge has been fortunate that since 1972, when Skip Randolph became town attorney here, to today, 43 years, you've had 3 attorneys. I mean, after Skip Randolph was Paul Nicoletti and then me. And that kind of, you want to try to strive for that kind of longevity and that kind of
Set a high
consistency. Yeah, I got old, I mean,
Right,
that's,
yeah. Oh, and that too.
that's the mark.
All right, so why don't we do this? Let's schedule a meeting for January. So I don't know if we're gonna wanna, I don't particularly wanna do it between now and the end of the month. And we schedule a meeting for January, and before that time, you turn in your sheet, just like we did on the other stuff, and then we pick an attorney. Bring your
Okay.
questions, and let's get it done.
When you say, do you say bring in
Short
2 or
list it.
3, a short list, 2 or 3?
Well,
and-
between now and the meeting, we'll get the short list, everybody send in your short list before the end of the month. And that way they can whittle it down to the 3 that we're all agreeing on, and
To 3, okay.
I think 3
Well,
would be,
the way, if you remember, the way you did it with the manager is you selected 3,
Okay.
then we identified how many, on how many sheets each person was on, and then you decided how many of those you wanted. I mean, you didn't stick to number 3 or number 4, then you decided based on where there seemed to be the preponderance of interest.
And one or two of them had other jobs already.
And one
by
or
that
two of them
time.
had other jobs, although that won't be the case here.
No, I'm sure.
Well, if you're going to go that route, I would suggest that you do that, submit them to Jamie and I by the end of the month. At the January meeting, we'll present it to you. You can identify then the 2, 3, or 4, or 5, however many you decide based on the interest that was shown that you want to interview. Set a special meeting in January so you can make the decision in February, so that gives me time to do a transition with the lawyer or law firm.
So you want a ranking on these?
No,
or
just
No,
check mark?
the 3 or
just
4 that you want.
Check off the 3 or 4 you'd be interested in. Or probably ought to pick a number, either 3 or 4,
Right,
Would-
okay, 4,
so that everybody picks the same number.
4 is,
all right, so pick 4,
Pick 4.
just, you know.
thank you.
Okay,
like a
so
lotto
so
ticket.
then they're going to submit it at the January meeting and then decide if they're going to interview.
No, you,
No.
When they're
No,
going
the
to
interview.
interview.
Right, okay.
you set the interview up on January.
But the list will be on the January 4th agenda.
Right.
Correct.
That's correct.
Now, we confused you enough so that you don't understand how we're doing this?
Right.
Oh, you got it.
Got
If
it.
she's got it, then we're doing it
See you
right.
then.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay,
Dan.
thank you.
Thank you,
And
great.
thank you for coming.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Confirm,
Are you taking public comment on individual items? I think somebody
on what?
had their hand up. I didn't know if you were taking comment.
Oh, this is an item on the agenda, so yeah.
Yeah, you can public comment if you want. I didn't see your hand, Stella.
Sorry.
You weren't waving.
Stella Kolb, 204 Beachway. I would just like to ask the commissioners, when you are selecting the firm, could you please ask the question, I don't know if it's a question, but I wanted to make sure there's no conflict in interest between which towns that they are representing. So that's all I would like to ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
You mean like being Malapan and Ocean Ridge? All right, so let's move on to confirm the hiring of Tracy Stevens for the new town clerk position. Jamie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I was hired, the town, with the announcement of Karen retiring after a very long time here in the town advertised for new town clerk candidates, and this commission put off that decision till after you hired the town clerk, because it's so critical, the roles of working together. From, I believe it was July when you first advertised till now, you received 9 candidates, and then from the time I arrived here, or a little before I arrived here, 3 more added their interest into the mix. I went through all the submitted applications that, including an in-house candidate here for the potential role of the new town clerk. I looked at the criteria of the 12 people that submitted, and I used a shortlisting metric of the fact that 4 of the candidates already had certified municipal clerk status, and 3 had extensive 7 to 10 plus years of on-the-job experience already as a town clerk. I also spent a lot of time talking to staff internally, different members of the staff, and trying to get my head around what would be the best fit for the town. And I will say I did some looking and recruiting on my part as well. Since the advertisement first went out in July, many of the people that had applied for the position, subsequently I researched every one of them. Several of them were employed elsewhere in the duration of time from when you advertised till now. And using essentially the overlapping matrix of what I mentioned were my top criteria, which was buying the most credential and experience we could right out of the box, so to speak. And the fact that some of the people that met that criteria were already hired elsewhere, that helped me narrow down my list quite rapidly. The candidate I am recommending that I would like to hire, I've made an offer to, and per the protocol of the town, it's the town commission's job to confirm that I can make these hires, is Tracy Stevens, and Tracy is here this evening, so if you would like to ask her some questions or present her publicly, we can do that. In your backup package, the information about the background of this selection, her cover letter to the town, and her CV resume, and a draft of the offer letter I put forward to her are all in there for backup for this item. I just want to add to that, I have had the experience, I know, well, 3 now, because one person was an in-house candidate, but I know 2 of the people that applied personally because I've worked with them before. Tracy is one of the people that I had prior experience with, so I'm firsthand familiar with her personal ethics, her work ethics, and her quality of product. And when all was said and done, I decided that she, in my mind, would be the best fit and bring the best credentials and qualifications to this situation. So I'm seeking tonight to ratify that decision to bring Tracy Stevens here as the next town clerk. Karen is working with us through January 29th, correct? And then, as you probably all know, she is in the drop program and is permanently retiring from the profession at that point in time. I also, just before I seek some action on that item, I have a second piece to this when we get done with this part of it that I'd like to ask for some consideration under special compensation duties for the current town clerk, but I'd rather handle that separately once we get beyond this particular piece. As I mentioned, Ms. Stevens is here tonight if you actually want to ask her any questions in public, or otherwise I'd be looking for action to ratify my hire.
Okay.
And I'll answer any questions you would like.
I'll make a motion that we go with the town manager's suggestion and hire Stacy Stevens as our next town clerk.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. Any other discussion?
Do we want to have any discussion? We would have it now.
About the other
Hiring
item,
of
about
the
this
town
hire.
clerk, yes.
Because I was just, I didn't know if you had planned to do any trial period, like a 90-day period, and then bring on, if what the salary range that you had done that was not in the documents.
The offered salary is in the draft letter in your backup.
Right.
I set that, I positioned that salary where I believed it ought to be categorically in the town and within the budget parameters of the town. I believe all employees are under a probation under town policy.
Right.
So whatever the standard probation is for all employees, that would apply here as well.
Which is what, 90 days?
I believe it's 90 days.
I think
I
it is
believe
90
it's
days.
90
6
days.
months. It's
6 months.
it's
100.
a year for police and dispatchers, and it's 6 months otherwise.
Okay, 6 months. So the probationary considerations would apply.
So is there going to be, at that time, because you said you had a starting salary and then an annual review, so would there be a 6-month review, and would there be any change of salary at that time?
Not unless it was the will of the commission at that time. The premise would be the review for consideration of increases or salary changes would be on the annual basis, the same as all other employees. In other words, it wouldn't change at the end of the probationary period. The other items listed in the draft letter there are all pretty much standard criteria and benefits for any hire in the town. There's one exception that I made there that has to do with an initial 2-week bank of vacation for the first year, so that she wouldn't have to wait a year to accrue it to take critical time off. That's the only deviation, if you will, from regular town policy.
Do we need something in the letter that says something that at the end of 6 months, she's then hired permanently after she's passed?
It's in the manual, it's employee manual.
Part of the
Yeah,
employee
it's just a
manual.
standard terms and conditions that applies to everybody. I'm, by contrast, the exception, because you hired me under a contract that specifically delineates those terms and conditions, but this position would fall under any general employee and the policies of the town.
Is that extended, any other discussion?
Public comment?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I don't have the
Oh, name and
Terry Brown,
address.
Harbor Drive South. I don't have the charter committed to memory, but I don't believe that the clerk's position is the same as other employees. I think it's a position that's hired and appointed by the commission. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with what Jamie just did, but in my opinion, you're not paying her enough for the job that she's going to be doing. I mean, I agree with Commissioner Allison. I know you have a letter that's presented already to her, but it's certainly worth $70,000 a year to be the clerk in this town. I should tell you, if they're going to do anything like what our previous town clerk,
Well, the
Karen has
finance
been
is
doing.
being removed.
Huh?
The finance is being removed, so
Okay.
it is split in.
But I'm just saying that you got to boost it up.
Thank you, Terry.
Actually, Terry, just for the information, that Lantana's chief clerk is between 58 and 62,000. Just to let you know, it's a bigger town. So I think that gives us some room, yeah, but that gives us some room to move after a 6-month period or whatever, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments or discussion? Then hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Ms. Stevens, welcome. And I hope that everything works out wonderful.
So you got 6 months to get it right, okay?
Tracy, don't mess it up.
We're going to make it look really bad.
All right,
I'll be
Jimmy,
the one that gets the axe, not you.
let's move on to the second part of this.
Yes, the second part on this agenda item, let me find it, I lost my page here. This goes part and parcel really with the changing out. Karen has been here a very long time and has worn many, many hats in this town, every single hat that you've ever asked her to wear.
Including attorney.
Including attorney, zoning official, finance director, town clerk, I mean, you name it, she's stepped up to the plate on this. Now, I referenced here, you do have precedence in your PBA contract and your policy manuals to allow for special compensation when somebody is called upon to train others to do their job. And I was going to make a recommendation using that precedence that you consider a special compensation for Karen for the remainder of the time she's working here, and the fact that she has to help train a new clerk, she has to help transfer financial duties off to me and assorted other duties around the town, that we would consider something at least like 10% of her salary as a one-time special compensation stipend for those extra duties while she's still here. Unfortunately, in Karen's case, once she leaves here because of the rules and regulations of her FRS terms, et cetera, we couldn't necessarily do things like you've done for some of the other employees where you've extended a consulting contract or something beyond her term of service. But certainly, we're going to be putting her to work and through the ringer in the next 6 weeks. In fact, she already has been, but for the duration of her stay here, to train new people, to transfer duties off to other folks already in the organization, and so on and so forth. So that would be my recommendation to you, that you consider at least that, if not more. I will just finally say that next month, January, which would be her last official meeting in this capacity, I'll bring additional requests forward to you that have to do with longevity, retirement pay, and recognizing Karen as she goes, into retirement and et cetera. But for now, I want to deal with the training component and what we could do for her on that level.
Can we unanimously make a motion?
Yes,
Wait a
yes,
minute,
go
and
for
she's
it.
working for 2 months, additional months? Is that the
Almost.
idea?
January 29th.
Okay, so 2/12 is 1/6. 1/6 is how much percent?
15,
15%?
a little bit better than that. 16, 7.
My math is not.
We always have one person good at math. Thank you,
Okay.
Richard.
I was going to pull out my
Not me.
calculator, but
Right.
All
We
right,
got
so,
So-
do we have to budget, take money from the budget and put it into a special place to pay her?
I believe we can identify where that comes from. You have
General funds?
contingency, but there are funds within the
Contingency.
departments too that might be.
I think to be clear, I don't think the manager's suggestion is to increase her rate of pay by 10%.
That's correct.
But
No,
it's
it's-
10% of the
Right,
That's
annual.
correct. It's a
That-
bonus.
what
Yeah.
my suggestion is that since she's working 2 additional months to provide those additional service, that we prorate it based on those 2 additional months and make that the amount of money that we're going to pay her for that.
Right.
That was my suggestion.
Understood.
And I'm making sure that we pull the money from the right fund
Right.
and put it into the right fund to make sure we have enough money, because I don't think we budgeted for that, right? Probably
No,
not- Probably did not.
There,
Remember, we were
but I
going to have an
don't-
Yes.
overlap of several months, and so certainly we would have found the money for that.
well, there's also the clerk's salaries. The new clerk's salary is going to be lower, so Karen would know better whether that means there's enough in the budget.
It's actually higher than what we budgeted. Sorry.
Yeah, the
But
new-
It's higher than what we budgeted, but you'd have to do it out of the contingency account and authorize transferring the money from the contingency account to.
That could be part of the recommendation metrics we bring to you in January if you need to know exactly where it's coming from after we do all the calculations
Yeah.
in terms of the budget amendment to do that.
So then what's the motion?
My weight, 1/6 is.
We don't have one yet.
Is less?
Yeah, we want more.
No,
than
that's
that.
18%. 1/6 is about
16.
17, a little, between 16 and 17%.
16.7.
Higher than that. So do we want to
One-
determine the amount now, or do we want to just say yes now? How do we put this to a vote?
Well, yes to all your questions. I'd like you to determine an amount. I'd like you to consider this as a lump stipend for additional assigned duties. It is not a bonus, it's a lump
It's additional
compensation for
salary.
additional
Right.
duties.
Training, right, compensation.
Hopefully, the number's bigger than even the one I suggested,
Why
but
don't you want it as a bonus?
We can't do that.
because
Bonus
We
is not
can't-
permitted.
okay.
not permitted.
it puts it into different
Got it,
Different category.
got it.
category.
All right,
As a training compensation, we have to make sure that the check is will be
Understood.
written before January
Understood.
29th, otherwise she can't accept it.
I move that we take from the contingency
Right.
fund and pay our clerk an additional 1/6 of her annual salary for the approximate 2 additional months of work that she will engage in during the transition between the end of her employment and the new clerk.
Which comes to about how much?
Well,
Rich,
About 13, a
One
little over 13,000,
13?
between 13 and 14.
13,000, how about
Well,
just,
12 and change.
how about $13,000?
$13,000, I'll second.
Okay,
Is there a motion second? Any other discussion?
no?
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Karen.
No, we're all gonna start.
Can I ask when? I'm doing payroll today.
What's that?
I'm doing payroll now.
Oh, yeah.
There's no crying in baseball.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next,
So I made
Next
somebody
action
cry
item.
with one of my motions.
Right.
authorize the purchase of 3 fully equipped, my glasses on, fully equipped police vehicles from budgeted funds. Jamie, or the chief?
Well, I'll turn it over to the chief. I just wanted to let you know that you have already budgeted for this item.
Yes.
This is, for process reasons, we bring it back to you when it's identified and ready to go. With that, I'll turn it over to the chief to describe the new Hummers and armored vehicles he's getting.
Oh, great.
The town manager's requested a Humvee be issued for him. Those costs will be coming later.
So it's standard vehicles, or what
After
are we?
great consideration, looking at everything that's available, it's a recommendation of my staff that we purchase 2 Ford Explorers, which we have one of marked now, as our primary platform, and we would like to explore the Dodge Charger sedan based upon the information we've received and our experience with our fleet. We believe that's the best solution. The costs coming in are based upon Florida Sheriff's bid. We have been able to get a bid price lower than that, so we can piggyback off of that and still realize some savings from Sheriff's bid based on the Ford price from the dealer that we've used traditionally. I'm awaiting the final price on the Dodge, but it cannot be higher than the Florida Sheriff's bid. This should be merely a formality because the cost of the items are over $10,000 each, and I would request your permission to move forward on the purchase of the vehicle.
Sounds good.
They're gonna be able to get in those cars, especially Jeff?
Part of our consideration with getting the Ford Explorer platform is Officer Van Camp, who is 6'8", 275 pounds. He does not fit well in a Ford Taurus. But he said to me he can get in, and I believe his exact words, "Chief, I'll get in for you. Please don't make me get out fast."
Well, there is a solution to that. Chief, are the Crown Vics off the table? They're not being produced, or what's the story on them?
I met with the design engineers from Ford when I was in Chicago. Apparently, the return of the Crown Victoria is an urban myth. If it is returned, according to them, it would be Crown Victoria in name only, not the similar platform. They cannot remanufacture or retool that car to meet the current EPA standards, is what I've been told.
Is this the is this the Cadillac extended warranty, the best extended warranty you can get? Or is
There is a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty, which comes at an additional cost of about $1,200. If the commission were to direct me, for the Ford, if the commission were to direct me to obtain that, we can do that within budget.
how many miles are you putting on these vehicles in 5 years?
We
We generally get rid of them after,
We typically don't drive a police vehicle in excess of 75,000 miles, which is why, and we don't generally keep them for 5 years, which is why over the course of our last true cyclical purchasing process, we did very well with that. We've gotten behind. By purchasing 3 vehicles this year, we will get back into our normal lifestyle cycle.
so you're not going to exceed 75,000 miles?
So I don't anticipate that we will.
Okay, and these are all each obviously cheaper than the Polaris Ranger, which I'm still fuming about. Thank God for that.
We do have the Polaris Ranger, and we have the new Honda, and it is working swimmingly. Thank you very much.
Okay, so want to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion.
I got a question. Are we
Okay.
still using 4,000 to purchase a radio for the system?
If there is
that's
leftover,
what's in
if there are leftover monies, based upon the fact that the county has awarded the bid for the radio system officially, so we know that the vendor is Motorola. Our recommendation to you, I will tell you up front, is going to be that we continue with Motorola and that we continue with the county radio shop because of our arrangement with them and the service that they provide us. I don't think that we can get that elsewhere. We can probably buy a cheaper radio, but I think the back end of it will cost us in the long run. We need to purchase new radios. If I can purchase a radio for $3,000 for the car out of the monies budgeted, it will be less than that we have to take at the end of that $80,000 2-year cycle. It's simply, we have the money budgeted for it this year. Our current radios, number one, will not fit into the consolettes that are in the vehicles now. And I'm hoping that we can have a definitive answer by December or January on what radio the county is going to be using based upon, there's certain specifications for encryption, non-encrypted radios, trunking, and all of those things that I kind of put off onto my radio person to tell me is a good thing. If we don't use that money, it would go back into the general fund, and I would be asking you, as part of our radio project, to purchase the same radio. So
Okay.
I think that the answer is it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It
Okay.
depends on one or the other.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of the 3 vehicles in a cost not to exceed $113,000.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Jamie. All right, moving on.
Does that also include the radio, that he can go
Nope,
ahead and?
nope,
No?
the
Okay.
radios are in a different part of the budget, that's why I didn't include it.
Okay. Just
Because
clear.
that's more to come, right?
Okay, moving on to number 12, authorize an amount not to exceed $10,000 to fund a portion of the multi-jurisdiction fire consulting study.
We talked about that.
We talked about this earlier, Mayor, and this is just for the official action by the commission. I was told this needed to come back to you, even though you had conceptually approved it in the past. We now have a working number of what our share will be, and we would take that, it's approximately $9,600. So we've asked you to authorize an amount not to exceed $10,000, which would be budgeted out of contingency.
All right, let's make a motion.
I move that we authorize an amount not to exceed $10,000 from the contingency to fund the town's portion of the multi-jurisdictional fire consulting study.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, Ken, let's talk about your extension.
12A.
Yes, Mayor,
12A.
the written agreement that I have with the town goes through either February 29th or March 1st, since I will be here by our agreement, I think, through the March 7th meeting. I've prepared an addendum to the employment agreement to change the termination date to March 7th, and would ask you to approve it.
All right, well,
I move that we approve the addendum to the employment agreement with our town attorney as set forth in item 12A.
I second.
motion is second. Any other discussion?
Question, Ken, do you need time beyond that to bring somebody up to speed? I mean, we're gonna bring in a new law firm.
Well,
Or are they gonna come up to speed on exactly what's going on? Do you need a week?
no, I mean, March 7th is a commission meeting day.
Okay.
My recommendation to you is, once you've made a selection, that you agree to bring them on perhaps, a week or two before
Okay,
that.
okay.
Beyond which, I think the law firms would probably be more than happy to come and get oriented, probably without pay for a week or two. So,
Okay.
Fantastic.
Good.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ken. All right, moving on to the second reading of adoption of ordinances. Karen, would you like to do the honors, please?
This is ordinance 612. This is an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending Article 4, Division 1, Section 66-117 of the Code of Ordinances to make the landscape provisions of Division 1 parking area landscape applicable to single-family and duplex dwelling units, providing for codification, for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, for severability, and also for an effective date. And this would be second reading and adoption. And this came as a result of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and recommending that it be extended and have it uniform throughout the town.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 612 on the second reading tonight.
Second.
Motion is second. Public comment. You have to come up? What's that?
Fun Club says, yeah.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, Karen?
is ordinance 613. This is an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending Section 1-3 definitions of the Code of Ordinances to include a partial demolitions of improvements and further amending Article 3, technical codes and other construction standards, Division 2, administration and enforcement, Section 67-51, permit required, to include requirements relative to partial demolition permits and the prevention of blight, providing for codification, for severability, for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, and for an effective date. And this is second reading and adoption. And again, this was brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission in August, and the commission agreed with their recommendation to come up with something in the code that would allow for a partial demolition. And they would have to have a building permit for whatever they would be replacing it with or permanently closing it, for lack of a better term, before the demolition permit would be issued. So at least it's not guaranteeing that they would complete the work, but at least they'd be going through the expense to apply for those building permits.
Perfect.
I move that we adopt ordinance 613 on the second reading tonight.
Second.
Motion and second. Public comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, Lynn, floor is
No,
yours.
no, it's been covered already.
Okay,
Thank you.
good deal. Well, I would like to say, we do have to plan
Yes.
our retirement party, obviously. So, do we want to wait till January to do that, or?
We are, we've been talking to Jamie about it already. He's hired some necessary dancers and.
Oh, really? Wow, I didn't get that memo.
We'll keep you posted. Right, that's why you
The
didn't get it.
Chippendales were not available that
Bob?
night, so we
Right,
went with
I
Alvin and the
really
Chipmunks as the
SEMO
closest.
offered to do that.
Robert Sloat, 6550 North Ocean Boulevard. Mr. Mayor, on behalf of my grandsons, Quinn and Vaughn, I want to thank the town for a wonderful holiday party, and the chief in particular for the 2 helmets. Today, I had to go out and buy 2 scooters at $80, so the bill is in the mail to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
I am so happy that we could help.
Well, everybody, I just want to say happy, what's that?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say happy holidays, everybody. It is December.
And in case it wasn't communicated, my apologies for having to miss a holiday celebration this year. I had my, Barbara's daughter was getting married down in Homestead on Saturday, and we had our rehearsal dinner down there
All
on
forgiven.
Friday night.
I'll forget.
Oh, yeah,
So
but
there
we
were
did have
priorities.
wine spill on our brand-new carpet, just so you know.
Is that right?
Yes, we
It
did.
is.
It pretty well
Did it come out?
came out, though.
Came
Oh,
out.
fantastic.
Oh, thank goodness. Karen's
White wine.
concerned.
Well, thank you, everybody,
Yeah,
and
white wine takes it
have a
out.
great holiday, and meeting adjourned. See you January.
Tell Rich.